Okay, so welcome all in this lunch and learn session. So we are going to talk about the 802.11 management and control frames. So what is the management frames and all those things we'll just learn in a couple of slides. So the agenda for this particular session is management frames. What is the management frame? What are the different management frames? So what are the list of management frames and subtypes we will talk, and the beacon frames. This is a main management frame for the 802.11 standard. So we will talk about the 8 beacon frames and active scanning, passive scanning. There are two different ways of scanning so probe request, what is a probe request, who will send it, and what is the content in that, and the probe response, what is, who will give that response back to the probe request, and what is the content in that. So what is the authentication, what is association, what is the difference between these two, so all those things. And what is a reassociation, what is a deassociation. So we will do the high level definition of this two, and deauthentication. So reassociation will go in depth, but deassociation and deauthentication will go high level. So these are the things that we are going to learn in this session. Okay, so what is a management frames? So 802.11 management frames enable the stations to establish and maintain the communication. Okay, so what is a station? Station is nothing but our client devices like our phones, laptops, IoT devices, Rokus, etc. So these management frames will enable the devices to connect to the router. Okay, so the management frames are used by the wireless devices like phones, laptops, IoT devices to join or leave. So to leave also, there are a couple of management frames. In agenda we saw that association, deassociation, right? So those are also management frames. So those also will be used by the devices to connect or leave to the Wi-Fi routers or a basic service sets. So in other words, the management packets are used to support authentication, association, and synchronization. So another name for the 802.11 management frame is management MAC protocol data unit, MMPDU. Okay, so the management frames do not carry any upper layer information. Okay, so this is purely for the communication between the router and the client devices, IoT devices. So the upper layer information, for example, if I want to stream something, so like L2, L3 protocol levels, or TCP levels, or upper layer like application layer, all the payloads will not, these management frames will not carry. This is just used to like establish the connection between the phones or laptops to the router. That's all. Okay, so I'm just using phones and laptops in general so that we'll understand. So phones and laptops to the router. So these management frames, it will use only for that purpose. Okay. Okay, so the wireless network is an unbounded medium. It is necessary for the wireless stations to first and find compatible WLAN, right? So it is an unbounded medium. So like the radio waves can go in any direction, or many directions, right? Any directions. So there are a lot of stations are available on that particular area, right? So in that case, like for example, my phone does not support 802.11 AX example, right? So but the router will support only 802.11 AX. There is no backward compatibility, for just for example. Okay, so theoretically. Okay, so then my phone want to try to connect to the access point, 802.11 AX access point. Will that possible? No, it is not possible. So that's where it comes, like finding the compatible WLAN devices. So this is where the management frames will help to finding the client devices, phones or laptops, to the compatible access points. Then authenticate to the WLAN, then associate with the WLAN to gain the access to the wired network. So the wired network, why I'm calling, is behind the router there is all wire, right? There is no wireless. So after router, it is connected to the modem through the wire, and modem connects to the RF through the backend system. So entire backend is wired network. So This is where association, once the client devices, phones gets associated with the WLAN devices, then it gain access to the wired network. That is where the management frames are useful. Okay, so what are the different types of management frames? There are 14 different management frame subtypes are defined in 802.11 standards. Okay, so association request, association response, a reassociation request, so a reassociation response, probe response, beacon, announcement, traffic indicator message, this TIM, this is one of the important indicator, disassociation, authentication, so de-authentication, actions, action, no act, time advertisement. So these are the different 14 subtypes, but we will not go through each and everything. We will discuss on like only few very important management frames. Okay. So again, I think we may not discuss this traffic identification message. So this is mainly used by the client devices to save the power because they run on the batteries, right? So it needs to save the batteries. So the announcement traffic indicator message, this particular management frame will be used by the phones, IoT devices, phones to save the power. So that's what I know. So you can find the rest of them from the other sources, references. Okay, so first let's start with the beacon frames. What is a beacon frame? One of the most important 802.11 management frame type is beacon. Okay, so beacons are essentially the heartbeat of wireless network. Okay, that's why it is important. So without beacon frames, there is no wireless network. Okay, so the access point, router broadcasts the beacon frames. Who will do that? This is router will broadcast and client listens the beacon frames. Okay, so access point uses the beacon frames to advertise to the clients all the configured capabilities of BSS, right? So a few minutes back we spoke about the compatibility. So how does my phone knows that the router is compatible to connect? So my phone supports only N, but the let's say like let's take the previous example only. So my phone supports only up to AC, but the router supports only AX. There is no backward compatibility. In that case, device cannot connect. So in the beacon frames that is broadcasted by the access point, it will clearly inform that, hey, I'm not a backward compatible, I cannot connect. So you, if you are a AX client or AX phone, connect me. So like that. So the clients will listen those beacon frames. It will decode the beacon frames, and it will understand whether it will be able to connect or not, etc. Okay. So other couple of things are also beacon frames will transmit. What all those things we will see in the next couple of slides. Okay, what are the capabilities of the router it will transmit in the beacon frames, we will see in a couple of seconds. So okay, so the beacon frames are transmitted at a targeted time of every 102 milliseconds, which means access point transmits the beacon about 10 times per second. So this is where it happens. Like, so whenever we connect the phone, immediately it connects, right? So how in the less than seconds? Because every 100 milliseconds there is a beacon frame is transmitted by the access point, so that the clients around the access point can listen those beacon frames and start trying to communicate it or connect it. Okay, so if an access point has the configured for the multiple SSIDs, access point will transmit beacon frames for each SSID. Okay, so as especially this is not applicable for SCP routers because we are transmitting a single SSID for the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, right? But in earlier, not just earlier, the other models in the market that you see, there are 2.4, they will transmit a one SSID, and 5 gig they will transmit one SSID. Even the monolithic routers also do that. Okay, so in that cases, like if my phone supports only 2.4, like IoT devices, some of the IoT device supports only 2.4, then if there is only one beacon frame, then they will not be able to understand. So that's why there will be a multiple SSID. Sorry, if it is broadcasting multiple SSID, it will transmit the multiple beacon frames on each SSID. Okay, so what are there inside the beacon frames? So timestamp is mainly used to synchronization the information. So times the a current time that router sends to the uh, client devices, phones, laptops, etc., so that both of them are in synchronization, right? So there are a lot of packets. When a connection establishes, there are a lot of packets which uses this time to send, transmit, and receive the packets. So this is the time. If the IoT device is not in synchronization with the access point, there may be a problems with the understanding the packets, upper layer packets. So it has to have a timestamp synchronization. And spread spectrum parameter sets, FSS, TSS, all those parameters will be sent around SSI. This is one of the important logic. If there is so how the phones will display, the different SSIDs that is around it. It listens the beacon frames, it decodes it, and from this particular field of the beacon frame, and it will put it in the list. For example, if you see my laptop, so here there is like in the, you all know that one, right? So if you want to connect an access point, you go and to the here and just select the SSID and start connecting it. How does my laptop knows what are the SSIDs are broadcasting around it? So my laptop or my phone will read the beacon frame, will decode the SSID from that beacon frame and put it for us as in the user interface. Okay, data rates, basic and supported data rates. This is another important point, right? So if IoT devices will support only a particular model, like, so as you know, the evaluation of the 802.11, so there are different data rates. Like A has around 20 megabits. So I'm not sure exact number. So 55 megabits and 100 megabits. Now AX supports almost 4 gigabits per second, right? So all those supported data rates, basic and supported bit rates will be transmitted in the beacon frames. We will see those things in the next upcoming slides, or in the practically I will show you how to capture this. Okay, service set capabilities, BSS, IBSS, channel information. So this is another important thing, right? So if my phone is searching the channel 44 and all of the access points around me are broadcasting channel 157, so my phone will never be able to connect, right? So this channel information also should be transmitted to the phone, the client devices, so that they can listen on all the channels and see which channel that access point is transmitting its broadcasting its SSID, or is able to connect. Then the phones will go to that channel and start communicating it using the another association and other management frames. Okay, so the channel information is also very important in the beacon frames. Traffic indication map. So this field is used during the power saving process. Okay, so let's say my phone is trying to connect to the access point. Okay, access point is busy in responding back. So then what phone will do is phone will go on to the sleep mode. Okay, for a fraction of seconds. Like, even though the milliseconds, still it counts a lot for the handheld devices when it is operating on the batteries. So if you have 1000 mAh battery, and if you save like in a day on 10 minutes also, that saves a lot of battery power and also extends the battery life. So this traffic indication map is one of the field which will tell, hey, I'm busy for so and so minutes or so and so milliseconds, you go and sleep, and whenever I'm wake up, I'll like, let's communicate. So like that, though handheld devices will go and sleep for a couple of seconds, sorry, a fraction of seconds, and then it will wake up and start communicating it. Okay, so that is where the traffic indication map is very important for the handheld devices. So BSS load, how much load it is there, the field is defined by the 802.11e, 2.11e, that is good indicator for the channel utilization. So so this channel is too much congested, etc., so that the client devices knows about that. Okay. QoS capability, quality of service enhanced distribution channel. So all this robust security in network, RSN capabilities, TKI, PCCMP. So these are all different information that beacon frames sends. The high throughput and very high throughput capabilities. So 802.11n AC capabilities also will be sent through the beacon frames. So vendor property information, vendor unique identifier, specific information. So if the access point using the big Broadcom chipset or a Qualcomm chipset, so the client devices might have a different methods of connecting, right? So as you guys see, you are working on a Broadcom and Qualcomm chipsets, right? So there is a different methods. Some issues might specific to the Broadcoms, so like that. So the client devices should know that who is the vendor of that particular access point chipset. So these are all different things are there in the beacon frames. We will see practically in those each and every field. Okay. A client device phone to connect to an access point, it must first discover an access point. Okay. So if I have connected a phone, I have turned on my Wi-Fi, okay, then it will start discovering the access point around that, right? So there are two different methods that phones or laptops, IoT devices uses. One is a passive scanning and one is active scanning. So we will see what is a passive scanning. Passive scanning is a client device, phone or laptop discovers an access point by listening for an access point. Okay, so clients start listening the beacon frames, which is transmitted by the access points. So if there are 5 routers around me and I've turned on my Wi-Fi on phone, and then 5 routers start sending the beacon frames. 1 minute, 10 beacon frames. Sorry, 1 second, 10 beacon frames. 50 beacon frames in a 1 second. My phone will get it, right? So now the client station listens for the beacon frames that continuously being sent by the access points. So every second 50 beacon frames my phone starts listening. Example like 5, if I have a 5 routers around me, right? So it will continuously listen it. And in the scenario one, if client already knows the access point SSID, for example, out of 5 SSIDs, I have already connected one SSID. And so what happens in that case? The other four also trying to send the beacon frames along with the known SSID access point. Then what happens? The client device will listen for the beacons and learn about all the BSS capabilities of that access point supports, and then device attempts to connect the WLAN using a subsequent management frame. It will listen all of them, but it will ignore them and it will listen only the a known access points SSID, like which already knows, right? So that access point, it will listen and it will start communicating with that. Okay, it will ignore the rest of the beacon frames from other access points. Okay, and there are subsequent access the management frames. Now client will use that subsequent frames to associate and authenticate itself to the access point. Okay, so now, so scenario number 2, if the client device hears the beacon frame from the multiple access points with the same SSID, okay, this is definitely possible, right? In our Spectrum setup, in ICP routers. So Spectrum setup is common. Last 2 digits of the MAC, we are appending it here. So there is a possibility that 2 routers have a same MAC address, right? And the last 2 digits of the MAC address. So MAC address are unique. So I'm just taking it back. MAC address are unique, but last 2 digits will have maybe unique, right? So in that case one, what happened? The first time connecting and password is unknown to the client. For example, those 2 routers, phone doesn't know the password of those 2 routers. Okay, so now the client will determine which access point has the best signal and it will attempt to connect it. So let's say both are broadcasting. I am standing in front of the 10 meters of the one router, and let's say 40 feet or 10 feet of the one router and 40 feet of the other router. Okay, so definitely the 10 feet router will have a best signal strength. Even though both are broadcasting at the same SSID, 10 feet will have a highest signal strength. So the phone will start trying to connect to the 10 feet router, right? In the case two, okay? So in the case two, repairing and one access point's password is known to the client, okay? So both are transmitting the same spectrum setup 99, but let's say router is near to the 10 feet and 40 feet, but sorry, phone is near to the 10 feet and 40 feet router, but phone knows the 40 feet router as password already. So definitely it will go and connect to the 40 feet side. Okay, client to device will try to connect to the known access point. Even though the phone signal strength for the particular phone has very good for the 10 feet router, let's say 10 feet router, but still it will go ahead and connect to the 40 feet router because it has already the known SSID and password. Okay, that is the case number two. Case number three, repairing and both access points password is known to the client. Okay, so sometime I connect my phone to this 10 feet, and sometime later, after 10 minutes later, I connect it to the 40 feet one, for example, right? So what happens now? My phone knows both SSIDs, both passwords. Then what will happen? The client device will determine which access point has the best signal, and then it will attempt to connect to that particular access point, which is the same as the case number one. Okay, so in that case, it will just try to connect to the for 10 feet one. Okay, active scanning, right. So what is the problem with the passive scanning? First, let's discuss with the problem with the passive scanning, then we will discuss about the active scanning. Okay, so for example, one drawback to the passive scanning is that the beacon management frames are broadcasted only on the same channel as the access point. For example, if my SCP router is broadcasting on channel number 1 and channel number 44. Okay, so one is for 2.4 gigahertz and channel number 44 is for the 5 gigahertz, right? My phone supports all the this one, right? All the channels, but so my phone don't know, like if I have only one access point in my home, and my phone has to scan all the channels like 1 to 12 for the 2.4 and 36 to all the way to 157, all the supported channels it has to scan, and it has to find which channel the access point is starting the broadcasting the beacon frame, and then my phone has to start communicating on that particular channel with the access point, right? So because my phone is already working on the battery, scanning all the channels, finding the particular access point, in which access point that access point the is access point is which channel that access point is broadcasting. So it is a like a power consumption. It is not a time consumption, it is a power consumption method, right? So my battery, I'm already on the battery, so I don't want to exhaust my battery for all these things. Okay, so discovering an access point, scanning all possible channels and listening to the beacon frames is not an efficient method for the client devices to find all the access point on our channels. Okay, so to enhance the discovery process, in active scanning, the client station will transmit the management frames to known as a probe request. Okay, my phone will start sending a probe request. Okay, hey, I'm here, is there anybody who can give me an access, right? Who can authenticate me, give me an access? So like that, my phone will start sending a probe request. So the probe request frame contains the information about the client station capabilities that can be initially be shared with the access point. Okay, so in the beacon frame has a access point capabilities. It will send all the access point capabilities. In the other direction, when the probe request sent, probe request will contain the client devices, phone's capabilities. Hey, my phone supports only 802.11 AC. Is there any 802.11 AC supported access points around me? Please help me to connect, or please connect me, like that. So all the information that is phone capable will be sent in the probe request. Okay, so we will see those probe request packets and probe beacon packets in a few minutes. Okay, so these probe requests can contain SSID of the specific access point that client is looking for. Okay, so in earlier cases we saw that there's a multiple cases we saw, like if my phone is already connected to an access point, and you want to reconnect to the same access point. It doesn't have to worry about the other access points. It can send that access point, sorry, SSID in the probe request. So the router which is broadcasting that SSID will read it and it will start communicating with the phone. Okay, so that is a one way. So let's say there is a two different methods in the probe request again. Okay, null probe request or a wildcard SSID and the direct probe request. So what is a null probe request? Okay, so any client station that is looking for any available SSID sends a probe request with SSID field none. So now let's say I this is my new phone, or all my route Wi-Fi I did the forget. Okay, now I'm looking for a new first time connection. So in that case, the client stations send the probe request with null SSID, because I don't know anybody who is who is around me. So I don't know their SSIDs. So I will send a null probe request with a blank SSID. Okay, another one is a direct probe request. Direct probe request is the same thing that just we discussed in the case number 3. Like if I have already known the SSID, then that SSID I will put it in the probe request and the client station will start sending that, hey, I know this SSID spectrum setup 99, whoever is broadcasting that SSID spectrum setup 99, give me an access to start, give me connect with me, like that. Okay, so any questions on the active scanning and passive scanning? Any questions till now? Perfect. Okay, so let's see. So let's see in details. Okay, so probe response. Okay, so now we have sent the probe request. So now we know what is active scanning, what is passive scanning, what is a beacon frame, what is a probe request, right? So now the probe response. Who will send the probe response? Probe response sent by the access points. Okay, if a null probe request is sent, let's say the connected phone does not know any of the SSIDs, then it will send the probe request. Then the probe response comes from the 3 different routers. This sends a red, this sends a blue. These are all SSIDs, 3 different probes. Okay, all the access point hear the request and will reply by sending probe response. Okay, so if the client station receives the probe response from multiple access points, signal strength and quality characteristics are typically used by the client station to determine which access point has the best signal and thus which access point to connect. Okay, so again, this probe response has a similar field like beacon frames. So it will send all the information of the router or access point. What are the SSID it is broadcasting? What is the signal strength? What is the make and model? So like all the information. So what is the TPIP? So all the information that it will include in the probe response and send it to the client. And client is nothing but a phone. Phone will decide whom to connect. I'm getting the blue, red, green. So my favorite color is blue. I will connect it to that. No, it is not possible like that. So it has to have a calculation. So red has a RSSID minus 40 dBm. Blue has a RSSID minus 60. Green has a minus 75. So definitely I will start connecting to the red because it has a very good signal strength. And also it is compatible to me. Like it also sees if it is a signal strength is good, shall I connect? No, if it is not compatible to me, if it is only supporting the AX and I'm only AC client, I cannot support the AX, so then I may not be able to connect to the red, because even though it has a very good signal strength, it will go to the next one. It will see okay, it has a minus 60 dBm RSSI and it supports the AC and I'm compatible with it, and it will go and connect to the blue SSID. So that is what it happens. So if the client station receives a probe response from the multiple multiple access points, signal strength, quality characteristics are typically used by the client stations to determine which access point has the best signal and thus a access point to connect. Okay, so any questions here? If I'm going too fast, please so just let me know. I will slow down. Okay, and next is probe response if the direct probe request is sent. Okay, so my phone knows this is a blue. Okay, blue phone, there is a blue as access point is blue SSID is there on the around me, so I know the blue SSID. It sends the direct probe request and to the blue, and it will start communicating. So all the access points that supports the specific SSID hear the request and should reply by sending the probe request. Okay, so this is the case number 2, right? So the earlier we discussed in the passive scanning. So if the other phone, other SS access point has the same blue, okay, then what will happen? So it will automatically get the probe response from the 2 access points, right? So now the phone has to decide which access point it has to connect. So in this particular example, I have shown only one access point has a blue. So this in the probe request, it will send the SSID blue, and then the blue SSID, whoever is broadcasting the blue SSID, they will send the probe response with the blue SSID. Then the information that is contained inside the body of the probe response frame is same information that can be found in the beacon frame. I just told you, right? So the probe response information, the body of the probe response is almost similar to the beacon frames, apart from the traffic indicator map. So the probe response will not have any traffic indicator map. So just like the beacon frames, the probe response frames contains all the necessary information for a client station to learn about the parameters of the basic service set before joining the BSS. Okay, so any questions on this direct probe response and null probe response? Okay, so moving to the other part. So 802.11 client to pass the traffic through the access point, client device must go through the authentication, right? Association process. So, okay. So what is authentication and what is the association process? We will learn in a second. So authentication process is that often misunderstood. When many people think that authentication, they think of what is commonly referred to as a network authentication, entering the SSID and password in order to get the access to the network. So this is not. Authentication is nothing but not just by entering the SSID and password, there are few other things are also involved in that. So when an 802.3 devices, so anybody knows what is the 802.3 device means? So 802.3 device means this is Ethernet supported devices. Okay. So 802.3 is a Ethernet protocol. Okay. So like 802.11 as a Wi-Fi standards, 802.3 is a Ethernet standards. This is a very, very old standard actually. So when 802.3 devices needs to communicate with the other devices, the first step is to plug the Ethernet cable into the router LAN socket, right? So this is nothing but the authentication from the devices side. So when 802.11 devices needs to communicate, so it must first authenticate with the access point. This authentication is equal to plugging in the Ethernet cable into the router LAN socket. Okay, so just making sure that both are connected. So that is nothing but authentication. So 802.11 authentication establishes an initial connection between the client and access point. Okay, think of this as an authenticating both the devices, valid 802.11 devices. Like I was giving you all the examples, right? So if I go ahead and like use my phone which is not supported AX, and if the router is supported only AX, it is not possible to connect, right? So making sure that the both are valid 802.11 devices and it both authenticate each other, so like that. Okay, so the original 802.11 standard defines the two different methods of authentication. One is the open system authentication and a shared key authentication. So open system authentication, so the wireless clients sends an authentication request to the access point with which the access point accept without question. Okay, so if I don't set any password in actually in ICP, there is no not possible, but an earlier like a couple of couple of access points or routers, if you buy it from the market, so you can use you can set up that without a password. So just no authentication is required. Simply if you know the SSID, just you can connect and start browsing the internet. So that's what happens. So like a Chatterguest, right? So Chatterguest, you don't need any password, but there is a different mechanism involved in that. But just in case, like example. So in this is also a case where like if you are giving the guest access to like right now guest access is not available in the SCP, but in the general, if you take any access points from the field, if you want to give the guest access point, you don't need any SSIDs. You don't have to set any SSID password for that one. You can just keep it open. Anybody can connect, if they know the SSID. Okay. Client do not need a pre-shared key or a credentials. Password example is Charter Guest Network. Using the open authentication doesn't automatically mean that there is no authentication at all. Okay, sometimes access point will authenticate wireless users on another level. So okay, what is the example? Example is a public Wi-Fi network at the airports, hotels, fast food restaurants, etc., etc. So they are all open authenticated, but still you need to log in, and you need to like give a user ID, password. Sorry, so you need to use your like Gmail address or anything that just in case of hotel, you just need to give your room number so that they know that okay, you are a genuine customer, so that they can you can use their internet at the free of cost, like that. Okay, so even though it is a open, but still you can have some kind of a restrictions on that open authentication networks. Shared key authentication. So the wireless equivalent privacy. This is a wired equivalent privacy. WEP is another protocol that is used by the shared key authentication. Supports the two authentication methods. Another one is open authentication and a shared authentication key. Another so same way. So, but unfortunately, WP is a broken protocol. Originally, in 2.8 or 2.11 standard was originally from the 1999. So researchers has discovered some weakness in 2011, which makes it very easy to decrypt the encrypted traffic and to retrieve the pre-shared keys. Okay, so if you see the news and YouTube channels, there are a lot of ways you can hack somebody else's internet or a router if they are using the WEP method. Okay, so it is very easy. You can just sniff the couple of packets, and I saw somewhere like people were able to breach into the other people's network within 10 minutes by using the sniffers. Okay, so if they are using the WEP, so wired equivalent protocol. So anybody knows what is the authentication method that is used in a SCP? So it is, the answer is WPA2 right now, and then WPA3 is coming actually. Okay, so because WP is a security method, it is not used anymore. Okay, so WEP is not used anymore. Okay, so WEP is officially deprecated in 2004, and since in 2011, 802.11i amendment frame. Okay, so this one for my reference, I'll show you what is that. Okay. Okay, so this is an exercise. What encryption and authentication protocols and algorithms should we use? You can read it from the reference 3 and 4. In this particular PPT, I have put a reference 3 and 4. You can go ahead and read. So what is the current encryption and authentication methods are used in the current access points? Okay. Coming to the association, when a client station associates, it becomes a member of access point. Okay, so once it associates with the access point, it becomes a member of access points. And association means the client station has established a layer 2 connectivity with the access points. Okay, so layer 2 connectivity is nothing but a data link layer, right? So once it gets the access to the data link layer, so till now we were in the physical layer, like so physical layer. So now we are into the data link layer. So once the association happens, we are into the data link layer 2, and then from there your devices is able to connect to the internet. Okay, so the client station sends the association request management frame to the access point seeking the permission to join the BSS, and then access point sends the association response management frame to the client, and then either granting or denying the permission to join the access point, right? So here, if you're giving the wrong password, or if you don't want, like in case of open system authentication method that you are seeing, so if you are giving the wrong hotel room number, so then the access point might deny you getting the permission into the access points network. So once the client station has completed the association, client will join the PSS. At this point, client can move beyond the layer 2, request an IP address, and begin upper layer communication. So once we get the association, now the phone will start accessing the IP address, try to access to the DHCP server on the access point, and will ask for the local IPv4, IPv6 address and start connecting to the internet. Okay, so this is what happens here. This is a pictorial way view of what we have discussed till now. Okay, so the first router sends the beacon frames, and then the phone sends the probe request. So in this case, this is a passive scanning, and this is active scanning. Okay, so client sends the probe request, and the access point sends the probe response, and then client sends the authentication request, and access point sends the authentication response. Then phone or a client sends the association request, and finally the access point sends the association response. If this happens, then only the phone starts getting into the access points network. Okay, so any questions till now? Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's move on to the reassociation. Okay, a client station decides to roam to a new access point, then reassociation, right? So this is generally in terms of, in case of the corporate network. Like for example, if my laptop is connected to the ChatterBlue, if I want to go to the third floor to fifth floor, I still want to connect to the same ChatterBlue. So in this case, the reassociation is the method. Okay, in the step 1, the client station sends the reassociation request frame to the new access point. Okay, my laptop, when I go to the fifth floor, so when my laptop will send the reassociation request frame to the access point that is sitting on there, then the reassociation request frame includes the BSS ID. Okay, so BSS ID is and the MAC addresses of my third floor access point. Okay, the BSS ID, ChatterBlue, and the MAC address of that BSS ID of the original access point. Let's say I'm giving an example. My third floor to fifth floor I'm going, right? So originally I've connected to the third floor. So third floor MAC address and BSS ID. In that reassociation request, it will send, my laptop or phone will send. And then step 2, the new access point then replies the station with an acknowledgement. So the fifth floor access point will send me an acknowledgement. The new access point attempted to communicate with the original access point by using the distribution system medium. Okay, this is not actually a step 3 is not in step 3, it is between the access point and access point. Okay, here there is no 802.11 involved here. So but the new access point attempts to communicate with the original access point to make sure that you are a genuine authenticated person or associated already or not. So he want to confirm, right? So if the communication is successful, the original access point will use the distribution system medium to forward any buffered data to the new access point. Yes, sir, you are already streaming something and you don't want to interrupt your streaming, or you are already in a meeting and you want to reconnect to the same meeting. So it will just send those details of that particular client stations to the new access point, so that new access point will continue from there. The new access point sends the reassociation response frame to the roaming client via wireless medium, and then client sends back the ACK. This is just a 4 steps actually. Step 3 and 4 is communicating between those two. Okay, we will see this one in a pictorial view. Okay, so for example, now you are in a, this is my original access point where I have connected, and then I move to the other access point, and then in step 1 an association request is sent, step 2 ACK is sent back, and then step 3 these and 4, these two will communicate, and step 5, reassociation response will come back. Once this access point like confirms that okay, this is a proper one which I can give the access, then it will send the response and then ACK will go. Okay. In the final step, what will happen? The client and target access points will proceed with a 4-way handshake. So the handshake frame exchange to generate the unique encryption keys between two radios. Okay, client and target access point will generate the 4-way handshake. So after the 6th step, this 4-way handshake will happen. Okay, it is not shown in this. Okay, if the reassociation is not successful, then the client will retain its connection to the original access point, either continue to communicate with the or attempt to roam to the another one. For example, if you are in a same floor, you are moving from one direction to another direction, and if when you are going to the new direction and you are not able to connect to this one, or it is not able to connect to you due to some various reasons, right? Access point might have various reasons, might not be IPs might not be there, or any hundreds of reasons will be there. So if the access point is not able to connect to this one, it will go back to the original one. Even though the signal strength is less, it will go back there. So, or it will try to another third point. If there may be another third point access point, it will try to connect there. Okay. So any questions till now? Good. Okay. So deassociation. Deassociation is just a notification. Okay. So not a request. If the station wants to deassociate from the access point, or an AP want to deassociate from the station, either device can send the deassociation frame. So either devices can send the deassociation frame, either access point or a phone or laptop. Okay, this is a polite way of terminating the association. So the deauthentication is a notification that again, this is another notification, not a request. It is a station want to deauthenticate from the access point, or if access point want to deauthenticate from the stations, either devices can send a deauthentication frame. Okay, because the deauthentication is a prerequisite for the future association. If you are not able to deauthenticate it, and so for example, like sometimes unable to connect, we will get it in a phone, right? So once you forget the network and then you try to connect it, it will work. So that is nothing but for the future association, deauthentication is a prerequisite for the deauthentication frame will automatically cause the disassociation. If the deauthentication happens, then automatically disassociation will happen. Okay. Control frames. The control frames, there are ACK, block, acknowledgement, PS polls, are request to send, clear to self, protection management. So these are all the various control frames. Okay. So what will happen now? So it's already a lot of information that might be went inside your mind or out of your head. So on top of your head. So I don't want to put a lot of information on your head again. So I will cover these control frames in my next lunch and learn. But meanwhile, I will do a quick practical session how to how to collect these beacon frames. Okay, so if you are using a Wireshark and trying to do a capture here, it will not you will not be able to connect any of these frames. Okay, so these are all these are all frames will be used. There is a tool called sniffers. So professional sniffing tools are there to collect these in our testing environment. So people will be using it. But for us, we have MacBooks, right? So MacBooks has a professional, means not professional, but at least there is a some sniffing to information is there. But for before that, I want to see, like for example, I want to go to my router and see which SSID it is broadcasting and which channel, what is the okay. I hope this will work. Okay. Okay, so my phone is connected, my laptop is connected to this. Okay, so this is my SSID, and I want to see which channel it is broadcasting, and what is the channel width. Okay, so that is possible from as far as I know, WinUI shows that one. Give me 1 second, let me show you. So Okay, so right now it is 44 channel. There is a channel width. Where is it? Okay, sorry, bandwidth 80 megahertz and channel 44 it is broadcasting. So right now I have connected, so you can scan any of the channels here. So channel 44 80 megahertz, sorry, width is also 20 40 80. So I think AX, if it is a AX client, it will support 160 320 also, because my laptop is supports only AX, I think AC or N, maybe that's why you are seeing only width 80. So now you started. Can someone do me a favor? Connect to this, your phone or your laptop or anything. Just try to connect when I'm scanning this. Anyone say yes?
Yeah, I can do it pretty easy.
Thank you, Ritesh. Yeah, so Sejam W218 is whenever you try to connect it, just let me know. I will start the sniffing so that we can see the beacon association, reassociation, all the frames. That's it. Are you ready?
No, I'm trying to find it in my list of SIDs. I'm not seeing it. Are your radios turned on?
Yes, radio is on. Radio is on, and my phone laptop is connected there.
It's Sagem W218, right?
Right.
Okay, I got it.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay.
And what's the password? Test 1,
Test 1 2 3 4.
3, 4. Okay, I'm gonna hit the connect button.
1 second.
Oh, I couldn't connect to the network. Uh, okay. Um, by any chance, do you think you might have two SSIDs broadcasting the same thing? Because it's not. Oh, now it's connecting. No, it's not. Hmm.
You guys hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
I don't know what happened. I think that router got disconnected. So my laptop was connected to that router and it got disconnected. Fine. So you connected this one, Hitesh?
It's I'm not able to connect. I keep getting a cannot connect or
Okay. So can you connect to the other one? Sagem CommScope 54, as but is same. CommScope 54, CommScope dash 54. I did all the setup before I come here. I don't know. Somehow router went offline. So
so
this,
Comscore 54, right? Yep. And
yeah,
same
CommScope
password?
54, same password, test 1 2 3 4.
Okay, connecting now.
Okay, 1 second. I'll start sniffing.
Oh, it's connected.
Okay, am I connected back, guys?
Yep.
Okay, so something looks like when I'm doing a sniffing, my phone is, sorry, my laptop is getting disconnected. Okay, so this particular sniffed packets are saved in var temp. Okay, so if you see ls-l, so this is my latest one. Just now I captured it. I will move this to my temporary folder. So user, TEMP. So now I will open this particular file from there. Open. So this is my latest one. Oops. This is my latest one. So just now I captured it. If you see the date on channel 44, date 24, 12:52. Oh, it's already one open. Okay, so I have opened it now. So you see there is a beacon frames, probe response, beacon frames. Okay, so association response will be there, request will be there. So this is not just a one router, it is captured. Okay, so it is captured from the multiple routers, multiple devices. See, you see Sagem, there is a another ASCII, you see the Raspberry Pi, so like that. Okay, so let me open one beacon frame just to show the different these things. Okay, so this is the SSID parameters, this spectrum setup A1, somebody's this one. Here is the timestamp, and here is the capabilities information. Okay, so various WEP privacy. Okay, while equivalent protocol privacy is SSID, and this is the supported rates, different supported rate, megabits per second, and so traffic indicator map, TIP, and different. So which region it is? If it is in a US, it will show US region, and in US region, what are the channels it supports? So, and also next power constraints, TCP, RSN. So these are all different information it will contain, and it will send it to the client devices. Okay, high throughput compatibility. This is 802.11 n support. It supports n, and so I saw there is a one a Wi-Fi 6 router which supports a very, so 802.11 AX it puts here in a high throughput information place. So see this. So different information, all the information that you can see here, which router supports. Okay, so and probe response. If you see the probe response again, so this is sent by the client, router. So again, it has a SSID password, supported bit rates, all the information that is there. Okay, probe response. Probe response, no, probe request. I need to see the probe request. Oh, there was a probe request. Okay, so this one is from the see, this one is from, I think this may be from the one of the uh, pod. So there is a one source ID and destination ID. So I think this is a source ID, and the destination ID is a broadcasted. So this is SSID. We connect probe request. I'll find one more probe request. Beacon frames. Okay, so I will try to find the way how to find the exact this one, but I have one another previously captured. Um, oh, that's why it was not showing. Okay, so I had a filter there. So this is frame is equal to frame dot. Okay, so this has all the association requests and everything. Okay. Yeah, so if I take this, this is where I kept it for handy so that I can show you guys. So these are all different association requests. Frame number 875. I see Samsung association request from one of the Samsung device. Okay, so in this case, you see this already knows the SSID, it sent it. So vendor specific information, this is Microsoft. It has some Microsoft packets, information, etc. Okay. So any questions on this one, guys? How to capture, and then what is the different frames does, and now it is, you can go ahead and do in-depth research on this, and you can find it. Okay. Anything else? Let me stop recording.